Welcome back to Mac Music Review. It is a beautiful day outside. It feels great. Just feels nice. Before I hop into the review, just want to say there's going to be some stuff down in the description if you want to know how the channel works. All that good stuff is going to be down in the description. Today we are going to be looking at the album Crave by fK&C. That was the album cover, and Crave is actually the debut album fK&C's debut album. fK&C is a Grammy Award-winning Christian contemporary music duo, most known for their huge sound, just their really big, ambitious, over-the-top music, theatrical performances in concert, and yeah, I really do want to see them in concert because that'd be pretty cool. But they're most known for their big sound, their kind of emotional singing, and all that good stuff. They're really just trying to be really big and epic. The Arcade Fire of Christian contemporary. Actually, no, King's Kaleidoscope is the Arcade Fire of Christian contemporary music. Never mind. That was a bad analogy. Anyway, this album is 11 songs long, and they're all full-length songs. There are no intros or interludes, so you have a solid album, solid amount of time. It's a complete album. This album differs from their sophomore album in two major ways. The first major way is the music. Musically, this album is far less ambitious, is far less far-reaching and ambitious and huge and crazy sounding as their sophomore album. Their sophomore album literally just shoots for the stars on like almost every single song, just tries to be as big and epic as possible, and they really don't do that on this album. There are occasional moments where they try to be pretty dramatic, and most of the album is pretty dramatic, but it's never as dramatic and huge sounding as their sophomore album, and for that reason, the album just feels a lot smaller. It just sounds smaller. It just feels smaller in scale, feels like less of a big deal. It's less of a commanding album because of that. Also worth noting, this album is nearly as successful as their sophomore album. Their sophomore album had a bunch of super popular songs on Christian radio. This one does not. I think The Proof of Your Love was a very small hit in Christian contemporary music. I don't think I've ever heard it on the radio. I think I've heard it from somewhere, but yeah, this album was not super commercially successful. You may be wondering, what does this album really sound like? Well, most of the songs on this album are actually fairly slow. They have fairly slow music, and that is for a reason, because lyrically this album, a lot of the songs are very somber. They're slowly sung, and they're supposed to be dramatic and sad, and some of them are pretty serious and heavy. Crave, Sane, Middle of Your Heart, People Change, Busted Heart, Missing, they light it up. Really, Proof of Your Love, really all the songs have pretty dramatic, slow, sometimes sad, a lot of times very serious lyrics, but that still fit pretty comfortably into Christian contemporary music. The only difference is that the music is a little bit darker. There are a few moments on this thing where the music does get more energetic and upbeat, like Light It Up. It's like a pretty energetic pop rock song with it does have some dramatic slow parts. And Fine Fine Life, which is really just a very upbeat, happy, uplifting, really energetic, upbeat song. I said the same thing multiple times just then. But you know what I'm saying? It's an upbeat, energetic, happy song. When I first listened to and reviewed Crave, I did not listen to it much at all. It was one of my premature reviews. Oftentimes with Christian music on AllMusic, this is a confession, I usually write the review much quicker, after much less listening to the album than I would with like a rap album or an alternative album, because I don't listen to Christian contemporary music as much as these other genres, even though I have reviewed a lot of Christian contemporary music. So yeah, a little bit of honesty right there. And to tell the truth, I didn't listen to this album very much at all. When I wrote my review, I gave it 4 stars. And when I'm coming back to this album, I'm actually kind of underwhelmed by it. And I'm going to try to explain why. Musically, in terms of music, this is not a bad album. But it's really not all that great. The music, for the most part, most of these songs have pretty slow music. And it kind of is just a little bit boring. I mean, it makes sense that the music is slow with the lyrical content, but it's not all that interesting. I'm not all that invested in this slow music. You can do slow music well, where it is really effective and dramatic and emotional and just sounds really good. But this, it just comes across as kind of dull. They do have some moments like, Forking and Country have a lot of instrumentation on their sophomore album. There is some, you do see some of that varied instrumentation on this album. Proof of Your Love has some strings. A lot of these songs are just piano and guitar and drums, the typical instruments. But musically speaking, this album is really not all that interesting. I would say that Fine Fine Life is definitely a standout. Light It Up, even though it is energetic and upbeat, sounds a little bit generic. Proof of Your Love sounds good, but it doesn't sound amazing. Like, musically speaking, this is not like a great record. It's a little bit underwhelming, especially when compared to their sophomore album. Lyrically speaking, this album also is not too great. I mean, when I listen to a Christian contemporary music album, I want to hear really good, solid Christian messages. Like stuff that really is uplifting, that really is good for me to hear, that really does lift me up and make me feel better. Because that's the point of Christian contemporary music. It's supposed to have solid lyrics. Either the lyrics need to be very worshipful or beneficial to the listener, is really what you're aiming for with Christian contemporary music. And this album, I was kind of just like, barely any of the lyrics stood out to me on this album, except for the lyrics on Pushing on a Pull Door, which stood out in a bad way, because the song, it's like the main emotional climax, the big moment of the chorus is this lyric. It's like you spend your whole life pushing on a pull door. And it's like, that's comedic. That's not emotional, that's not dramatic, and they're not trying to be comedic, they're trying to be emotional and serious. But the example of pushing on a pull door is something funny. That's something you laugh at. When one of your friends does that, you laugh. When you do that, you laugh at yourself. It's like, or people laugh at you. You shouldn't try to do that and make it dramatic. That just doesn't work. So lyrically speaking, this album really isn't all that much, honestly. What I do want to commend about this album is the vocals. I think vocally this album is pretty good. It's Forking and Country is very passionate vocals. They're very dramatic, and I think they do honestly do a good job with the vocals. And they do sing. Most of these songs have pretty dark lyrics, pretty dark downbeat lyrics, and I think they do sing these lyrics pretty well. They do present these songs very well, even though most of the lyrics are not all that great. Yeah, this album, Crave is not terrible, but it's really not all that great. Lyrically, it's kind of underwhelming. Musically, it's kind of underwhelming. This is just an underwhelming debut album from a typically overwhelming band. I'm gonna have to give this album a 3.25 star rating out of 5. Forking and Country is one of the best names in Christian contemporary music, and you're gonna see why. If you've listened to the album, I don't know the full name of the album because it's kind of long and kind of weird for their sophomore album. But if you've listened to it or heard these guys on the radio, you know this band is capable of doing great things, and they have done great things. And I'm going to be talking about that in the next review. And that next review might be a little while because I'm going on like this big church trip thing. So it'll be a little while, and I won't be able to upload on Saturday. So this video, yeah, I won't be able to upload on Saturday, so it's going to be a while for my next review. But it's going to be a good one. It should be a good one.